Sorry, so I messed up actually. I cut off the video in the middle when I tried to look at the screen. Silly idea. Um, Basically, I looked on the World Health Organization site and it said on a posting that was posted, notably in December 2019, it announced expectantly, perhaps even triumphantly. I'm not going to read any thoughts into their headlines that they didn't explicitly state, but it announced optimistically, welcome to 2020, the year when diseases, many diseases, contagious diseases, whatever it is, are to be eradicated, made extinct. I don't remember the precise terminology, and I'm not going to look at it again because we'll be cutting up this video one more time. And it goes on to detail actually the fight against coronavirus, against AIDS. Both in the same vein, similarly lent to this doctor who was speaking on the radio in around January, February time, early February, about the end of the fight against AIDS. AIDS seems to have essentially, like we said, been cured. It's no longer a fatal disease, it's a chronic condition. Great. So some of you might say, you know, what happens next? Well, next, you know, we've cured AIDS, and boom, suddenly, just by some freak, amazing, totally unrelated coincidence of freak of fate, our pet Pangola emanates there and springs the champion Corona into victim number one, just at that date. Just at the very time when we were announcing end of AIDS. I don't actually have the photo op showing at the same time this speech was being made that Corona was making its way from Pangolan to victim. But I'm sure, excuse me, if someone has some pull with the Chinese authorities, I'm sure everything is caught there on camera. I'm sure they've got a closed circuit, high definition images of said Pangolan and said victim one moving from one to the other. You can check the times, but they seem to be pretty close. So yeah, incredible coincidence, maybe. Yeah, we've cured AIDS. It's all over, guys. Go back to whatever. Next minute, well, guess what? We've got Corona. So if you are true believers and you have this deep faith in the power of coincidence, not like us heretics, infidels who do question these incredible coincidences, then yeah, of course you will say, yeah, as a devout believer, this is pure coincidence, another pure coincidence, and why are you bothering to even attempt to draw any causal connection between the two? Yeah, I'm not speaking to the believers. I'm a heretic, or I'm at least a cynic, somewhat cynical, somewhat somewhat skeptical about all these coincidences, right from the very first freak quantum aberration and fluctuation that led to from a dot the size of a billionth of this fingernail, or a trillionth of this fingernail, a trillionth of a trillionth of that, producing this universe with Trump and iPhone 5, like we said. I'm not convinced that it's pure coincidence. I am a little bit skeptical. So, and therefore, maybe someone is telling us something. Maybe whoever you want to say it is it nature? Is it hubris? I say it's Hashem, it's God, and who's looking over us. And we're saying, you know, we're feeling rather confident, rather happy with ourselves. We have, through our great technological efforts and innovations, we have managed to create a cure for AIDS. But then someone comes and says, yeah, but you know, there's plenty more. I've got more in my bag of surprises from where that one came. And the joke maybe is actually on us. K19. Therefore, and K19, as I said, it's a sort of an optimal number It's something of a propitious number. 19. It happened in 19th century, 20th century, 21st century. The year 2019, 2020 was the year, the pivotal year when AIDS out, it's no longer the fashion, and K19 in. Which is why I'm saying, what was why I was saying the most ridiculous statement that I don't know if it's a good idea that we should find a cure for K19, for corona, because who knows, according to this theory anyway, of this particular dynamic, that once we triumphantly announce we've got a cure to this, who knows what else might be down the line? What what bright lights will be approaching us? Is it the light at the end of the tunnel, or is it the approaching train? I wouldn't like to gamble that. Therefore, hopefully we will find a cure, but you know, let's uh, let's be uh, let's be cool about it. That's the first point. On the similar vein, I'm maybe going to suggest there's a message here from humanity. Who am I to start saying messages to humanity? No one. So, but I've drawn a sort of a train of thought between AIDS and Corona. Let me take that a little bit further. Um, AIDS was, you had the 60s, the swinging 60s, um, the hippies, the 60s, the 70s, where human social behavior sort of took a turn, maybe you might say a downward turn, and freedom to indulge became popular, became something that was to be almost admired. Licentiousness, whatever, promiscuity, these things became all the rage. 60s, 70s. Just at that point, once again, comes along AIDS, and which was sort of many people wanted to say, wanted to suggest, and not myself, many people of religious persuasion, irrational people suggest maybe God is giving a little message here, because those who were most susceptible to AIDS were those indulging in those um, um, uncensored and undisciplined and unbridled behavior in conducting all sorts of relationships with all sorts of people without thought of the consequences or of the appropriateness of such action. Came along AIDS, it sort of was put a bit of a damper on all of that. It put a bit of cold water on everyone's heads. You weren't so free to do whatever you want. But of course, the solution, there were workarounds from condoms, whatever, and all sorts of things that enabled society and people to maintain the practices that they had hitherto been indulging in. And okay, the rest we carried on. So maybe somebody is saying, okay, I've given you, this is my interpretation for what it's worth, I've given you AIDS. Maybe I was hoping that that would have something of a salutary effect on the way you humans conduct yourselves in your physical, intimate relationships, that you start to maybe honor them, invest them with a little bit more sanctity, almost holiness, you might say. And it didn't work. Look what's going to be with K19 Corona. What's its immediate effect? Its first effect is human distance, social distancing, where we have to be careful. When I walk into the street, illegally, of course, anybody refuses to pass me within a 2 meter squared radius whatsoever. No one's going to be going near each other. So this may be, of course, only a short term, but it's looking at the moment that we're moving towards a new social era in which distancing between individuals is going to have to be the flavor. It's going to have to be very much the social practice that everyone has to pull the line with. Otherwise, you are somebody who is endangering your own and, more importantly, other people's health. So is this again maybe the ironic of is ironically God's like not his revenge, but his way of trying again, another ploy, another tactic to inculcate us with a certain dynamic of in the opposite direction of the one we'd be pursuing, which maybe is why I'm suggesting maybe another aspect too, why we've got this corona coming up now, and what its perhaps deeper metaphysical, spiritual significance might be. Everyone, of course, is free to take their own message and their own lesson from this. We'll see how things pan out. Best of health to everyone, and Shabbat Shalom.